Good morning, Committee. Paul Mason for Pacific Forest Trust. And first, I want to thank you for listening so attentively to such a long litany of meritorious projects.
Y'all just keep on coming.
And there's still people out in the hall, I think. Anyhow, I want to speak specifically to the Forest Health Program and the Watershed Restoration Program at Department of Fish and Wildlife. I just want to quickly highlight a couple of...
There wasn't a request, by the way. It was a comment about what I'm seeing.
And I just want to highlight a couple of things there. I mean, obviously, these are tremendously ecologically valuable programs that also deliver greenhouse gas reductions and help us secure our natural infrastructure so our watersheds keep functioning in an era of climate change. That's great. I also want to highlight something that both the LAO and Assemblyman Olbernolte highlighted, and that's that these are investments that happen outside of the cap. So we have very high confidence in the reductions that we're gaining and that they're additional to those that would otherwise happen under the cap and trade program. I finally want to note that particularly for the Forest Health Program, since the governor released his proposal in January for the $150 million program, which was obviously largely targeted to address the dramatic tree mortality issue happening in the Southern Sierras, that issue has expanded dramatically. I believe we're going to see an expansion of the area affected by the governor's executive order. And frankly, $150 million is not going to be nearly enough money to deal with the scale of the project when you look both at those areas that are under sort of imminent disaster response, and then if we also actually want to get ahead of the curve and be dealing with some of our forest health challenges before they are at this epidemic level, with a combination of short-term investments and then longer-term actions as well that keep us on a trajectory towards healthier forests in the future. So we'd suggest that you look seriously at the scale of the problem, the pressing nature of that declared emergency, and consider augmenting that given the need. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land, also a member of the Sustainable Communities for All and Natural and Working Lands Coalition. We're in strong support of the governor's proposed investments to all of the natural resource investments. I do want to highlight our strong support for the Transformational Climate Communities Program and the new Urban Greening Program. TPL has been working in urban communities to green our cities for over 40 years. And we're very well aware of the interventions like green alleys and local parks and river parkways that have direct greenhouse gas benefits by connecting people to their destinations and getting them to walk or bike instead. These kinds of projects also lower the temperature of our cities, and thus we use less energy. And the co-benefits are well documented academically, particularly around human health, and again, particularly around children's human health. And they also protect our communities from severe storm events and sea level rise. So greening our cities, I think, is one of the most important things we can do with greenhouse gas cap and trade money, and really hits the sweet spot of a lot of policy objectives of the state. So thank you very much.
Good morning, Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. I'll keep my comments very short because they've been made by several other speakers this morning. We're here to express support for a number of programs, including the allocation plan, including the $100 million for waste diversion programs, $150 million for forest health and tree mortality, and the $100 million for the Transformational Climate Communities Program. We do think that there is merit in funding some of these new programs now, as they, as was mentioned, are outside of the cap and can help achieve increased emissions reductions. And they also go to address a great need. Just for example, the 29 million dead and dying trees in California through the tree mortality issue poses a significant health and safety risk to Californians, but also can help sequester carbon and effectively manage our forests, can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, AB 1826 requires us to divert organics out of our landfills from the commercial sector, and there's a great need to develop this infrastructure. A lot of these funds are going towards grant programs, which are meant and used to dealing with the ebbs and flows of funding, so we definitely think that they are capable of dealing with future allocations applications. And as I mentioned, they have a tremendous amount of co-benefits and can help the state achieve multiple environmental goals. Thank you.
Christina Lockey with the California Special Districts Association. I want to echo the comments of the urban counties and CSAC in support of the Transformational Climate Communities Program, and just thank the governor and the administration for listening to our comments regarding creating a local program, and also to Assemblymember Gordon for being an early leader on this with his introduction of a bill a few years ago to create a program specifically for local governments. We're in the best position to help work with local communities, local planners, the public, and the NGO community to help the state reduce GHG emissions and meet our state energy and climate goals.
Mr. Chair and members, Erin Evans on behalf of First Priority Bus and Green Fleet. We provide both zero-emission school buses as well as medium-duty trucks. I'm here to support the low-carbon transportation investment as well as urge a 3-year appropriation of the funds. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Corey Salzillo here on behalf of Fiat Chrysler, here in support of the enhanced funding proposal referenced by earlier speakers for the SB 1275, SB 1204, Governor Zev mandate, as well as the underfunded programs like the CVRP. We understand there are many calls on the funding, but reliable ongoing funding is necessary to guarantee certainty for project participants. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Katrina Robinson here in support of the Healthy Soils Initiative on behalf of the Carbon Cycle Institute, and then also in support of the other short-lived climate pollutant funding in favor or on behalf of John Wick, the co-founder of the Marine Carbon Project and the Global Compost Initiative. In the state, if we're going to set goals on short-lived climate pollutants, which we do believe are necessary, we think we need to help producers really make those upfront investments. Oftentimes, these are costly investments, especially in methane reduction. Digesters and other types of manure management technology like dry scrape, where the manure can then be co-composted with green waste, are expensive, they're new, and we know our producers in California are working on razor-thin margins. And with CDFA setting milk prices, especially for dairies, there is no ability to pass on costs to consumers if there is a cost. And so producers really do need the upfront help. So thank you very much, and we support both the Healthy Soils Initiative and an increased funding to the anaerobic digester and methane reduction pot.
Good morning, Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. You've heard about many wonderful programs this morning. Given the line outside, I think it may keep going for a while. I'm here to speak in support specifically of the $40 million for wood smoke in the governor's proposal. Cutting wood smoke is important for both greenhouse gas goals, critical component of black carbon, a short-lived climate pollutant, but also a tremendously important from a public health perspective. We know what fine particles do to our lungs, to our pulmonary system, to increased incidence of heart disease, a wide range of problems. The wood smoke proposal is one that is ready to go, that has very real, quantifiable, measurable, substantial reductions, and would build on existing programs at a much smaller level that are in place. So we urge your support for that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Adam Coton with the California Climate and Agriculture Network, representing a coalition of sustainable agriculture organizations and farmer member groups. Very simple message. The governor has proposed a suite of climate-smart agriculture programs. Agriculture is on the front lines of climate change. Agriculture is at the table and ready to act, and we can't delay another year investing in these programs. We urge your leadership on these issues. Thanks.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Bonnie Holmes-Jan with the American Lung Association in California. And I wanted to start off by just briefly reminding you that today the Lung Association released our annual State of the Air report. And this report, again, finds that California dominates the lists of the worst polluted cities in the country. And Los Angeles and Bakersfield top the list of worst polluted areas. So this is just a reminder of how critical it is to approve these funds for greenhouse gas reduction and co-benefit, and to get these funds out the door. We want to specifically support several pots here. I want to support the low funding, the low carbon transportation allocation. This is a critical time to step up our efforts to move away from fossil fuels and get zero emission and advanced technology cars, trucks, buses, and freight on the road. We specifically support the SB 1275 measures and the Charge Ahead program and all these efforts to make sure that all communities can participate in this transformation to zero emission. We also want to support the augmentation to the active transportation program that's been discussed earlier by Safe Routes to Schools and other groups with $100 million from the Low Carbon Roads program. It's critically important to support walking and biking and help people get the health benefits of active transportation while they're helping to clean the air. Also want to draw your attention again to the critical importance of the short-lived climate pollutant program and getting these local air quality benefits while we're getting rid of these pollutants that are accelerating climate change. So we support the breadth of measures, but specifically ask you to support the $40 million for the black carbon wood smoke program. This is long overdue. It's a common sense investment that will improve health locally and air quality regionally. Most of all, we look forward to working with you to get all these funds out there on the road and out there in the communities so that we can get these local and statewide benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Jacobson with Environment California. We're coming to support a minimum of $670 million for the low-carbon transportation programs. And I just want to take a minute because in the past 20, 25, 45 minutes that you've been sitting here listening, you've heard environmental groups come up and support this program, environmental justice groups come up and support this program, public health groups come up and support this program, and the business community come up and support it. And not just the business community that's making green vehicles, but one of the major auto manufacturers in the country and in the world is now supporting this program. This program works because California is a leader on electric vehicles and electric trucks. That's helping our economy, but more importantly, it's helping to clean the air, as Bonnie Holmesgen from the American Lung Association was just referencing, is so critically important. That's why we need to continue these programs. We need to make the investments now if we're going to meet the goals that we have to meet and that science says that we have to meet in order to protect our climate. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Mario DiBernardo with the Northern California Power Agency. We represent 14 publicly owned utilities as well as a rural electric cooperative. We are in support of the Healthy Forest proposal, especially as it relates to wildfires that affect or preventing wildfires that affect energy infrastructure and reliability. We had two power plants, renewable RPS-eligible power plants that were affected by the Valley Fire and the Butte Fire last year. We had our geothermal power plant, the geysers, and small hydro in Calaveras County. The Valley Fire had a bigger impact on our facilities were temporarily shut down during the month of September, but the Valley Fire had a much bigger impact on our counterpart in the geysers, Calpine, which provides 12% of the state's renewable energy. We think that protecting renewable energy infrastructure through the Healthy Forest program has several co-benefits related to reducing GHG emissions, delivering renewable energy, and protecting our communities. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marilee Eckert. I'm the CEO of Conservation Corps North Bay, and today I'm representing the California Association of Local Conservation Corps. We are in support of the funding discussed in the governor's proposal for the California Conservation Corps' GGRF Energy Corps program. The Certified Community Conservation Corps also do this work, and we would like to see additional funds added to the proposal and a clarification that Certified Community Conservation Corps are also eligible for this funding through the California Conservation Corps. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a brief timeout. Don't go anywhere. Mr. Gordon has to leave, and he has some comments to add before he leaves on this item, so just to provide some continuity, if you don't mind.
Great. Mr. Chair, very much appreciate you allowing me to make a couple of comments before we hear the rest of the public testimony, as I do have to step out for a moment. But as I think about the cap and trade and the greenhouse gas budget issues, I'm pleased we're holding this item open today. And we've heard a lot. And some of my thoughts as I think about how we best respond as a subcommittee to the governor's proposal that I just wanted to put on the table. One, I think we have to look carefully at the issue of ongoing expenditures and one-time expenditures. There may be some of these programs that really do lend themselves very well to grant activities that are really kind of can be a one-time. But there's certain activities that if we set them up, they may need funding over a period of years in order to really accomplish our goals. And I think we'll have to figure out, as we think about this, what's the balance in that. I also am listening to the testimony and thinking about this. I do think that we also ought to look closely at how do we make sure that we're targeting our activities that we spend money on to maximize our results around greenhouse gas reductions. That we ought to make sure that we're doing this in the right way. Also looking at the data that was provided earlier by the LAO and looking at kind of a cost-benefit analysis and where we're getting the most bang for the buck. Also, as we develop a budget response, I think is something we should think about. And then finally, I just wanted to comment. There were some comments made earlier in the testimony about Cal EnviroScreen, and having done some work on this, it's an intriguing measure because it really was established as an environmental justice tool, not as a tool to describe what we typically think of as disadvantaged communities. 16 of the 19 measures used in the Cal EnviroScreen are related directly to the environment. Only 3 of them are related to the economy or economic factors. So it's probably an appropriate tool when we're looking at issues related to environmental justice. But when we're thinking about communities of poverty, it may not always be the most appropriate tool. And figuring out how we balance when it's appropriate to use that tool and when other considerations might be necessary may be something else we'll have to consider as we move forward. But I think as we look at this, we ought to look at getting the best bang for our buck, maximizing our greenhouse gas reductions, and making sure that we analyze how best to use these funds both in the short term, but thinking for our longer term goals and achievements. So thank you for allowing me to make those comments.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, please. Members, I'll just tag on to what Mr. Gordon just said. Josh Pane on behalf of the California Refuse Recycling Council. We support. It was
not a setup for you.
No, but the cost-benefit analysis, we support the administration's $100 million for organics and other recycling, getting that stuff out of the landfill. We believe, as we just distributed to you or distributing to you now, that you could actually double that and do it for 5 years, and you'd start approaching what it's going to take to get the organics out of the landfills. So we would urge your support for the $100 million. We would say you could double it, double down on that, and you could do that for 5 years, and we'd start getting at what your staff is suggesting of 1.6 to 2 billion. We think, as Mr. Urban said earlier, that it could be $4 billion to get this stuff out of the landfills, stop the methane from going into the atmosphere. So we applaud your efforts, and we would applaud you to support that $100 million. Thank you.
Just checking to see if it's still morning. Good morning. My name is Sharon Green. I'm here with the California Association of Sanitation Agencies and the Sanitation Districts of Los Angeles County. I want to build on the prior comments of both Mr. Pane and Assemblymember Gordon. We do support the governor's request for $100 million for waste diversion. Our angle is that wastewater treatment facilities, which are publicly owned and have taken a public investment, can be utilized for this purpose to kind of get double duty out of them by taking pre-processed food waste and other organic waste into those existing digesters that have excess capacity. You get a double bang for your buck. You get a more cost-effective way to achieve this goal of both waste diversion, which avoids the methane emissions from landfills, as well as on the back end when we create energy products, biogas-derived products. And so we urge you, because it is very cost-effective and it will get those high levels of greenhouse gas reductions, to consider augmenting that $100 million and to give a portion of that specifically for the publicly owned wastewater treatment facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Bocadoro on behalf of Ag Energy Consumers Association. I believe the sergeants are going to hand out a document that I'm going to refer to in my testimony very briefly. It builds on the work that the Department of Finance and LAO have already done. It's a one-page cheat sheet, if you will, to answer Mr. Gordon's question about what is the bang for the buck for the various investments the state is making in greenhouse gases. And it computes it all on a level playing field. So the green column on the right, the lower that number, the better the investment in terms of dollars in and GHG reduction out. So if you take away from this, you can see that these projects range from as little as $4 per ton of reduction to over $500 per ton of reduction in terms of how much bang for the buck. And when you boil this down even further, you'll see that two areas that Mr. Panay and Sharon Green just referenced, organics management and dairy digesters, provide some of the best bang for the buck for the state at $8 and $9 in for every ton of reduction in methane. It's also a short-lived climate pollutant. One other observation across the board, governor's budget provides about 10% of the funds for short-lived climate pollutants. According to ARB, they're 40% of the problem in the short term. Would make a lot of sense to dramatically increase the amount of funding available for short-lived climate pollutants. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Tim Schott on behalf of the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit District. Just ask you to continue to consider and to support transit as a principal component of reducing our greenhouse gases. BART's an all-electric system, and there's a lot of bang for the buck in making sure that we're getting folks out of their cars and also serving our disadvantaged communities. Separately, on behalf of the California Association of Port Authorities, which is comprised of the 11 commercial publicly owned ports, would encourage you to continue to consider freight and goods movement in your calculations and requests and deliberations. As we seek to transition to zero and near zero emissions technologies and remain competitive in the global marketplace, our ports and our supply chain are going to need significant state leadership in making sure that we can develop those technologies and implement them in a cost-effective manner. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and members, Ed Manning on behalf of the Western United Dairymen. You have received, I know, several coalition letters from the dairy industry and some environmental community folks supporting what the LAO has recognized in their analysis, I think, of last week, that digesters, scrape, solid separation, and other technologies are incredibly cost-effective and can get us reductions between now and 2020. CARB has got a plan for short-lived climate pollutant reductions from dairies, incredibly ambitious plan. CDFA has said we need an investment of at least $100 million a year for 5 years to have any hope of achieving the laudable goals that CARB wants us to get from dairies. Literally, dairies in California are being experimented on. And for that experiment to have any hope of working, it's got to be technologically and economically feasible. And so that takes an investment on things like solid separation and using composting, which is cost effective. CDFA currently has a program that the chair is familiar with. You've made previous investments there in both the dairy digester and manure management side, as well as the composting side. And so we request that an investment of $100 million a year plus $20 to $30 million for soils needs to be done every year for us to get to where we need to go on methane controls at dairies. And thank you for your time and attention, and I don't know how you do it. So,
thank you. It's all sleight of hand. Well, you're going to watch us pull a rabbit out of our hat. So this has been a very informative public hearing, and I think having heard from the number of people representing the breadth of interests that we've heard from, just I think really does give a good sense to everyone of just how challenging our responsibilities are here, particularly given our current understanding of the funds that are available and the projections forward, and having to take all of that into consideration. So I want to thank everybody for spending some time with us here this morning to go through this very, very important program, which no matter how we evaluate it, is a very limited resource and one that we need to use intelligently and purposefully. Mr. Williams, did you want to add anything?
Sure. I just think that there's a point that a couple of speakers alluded to, but that is important to talk about, because in the debate over ongoing versus one-time expenditures and protecting the sustainability of the program, this is one program I don't think that we should be as guarded about protecting the sustainability of over multiple years, and for the simple reason that the primary criteria of the program is reductions by 2020. And we, collectively, I won't say that it's the Assembly's fault. I'll of course blame the other two branches of government, but I will say that collectively we failed last year to get money at the door, and that made it now 20% more difficult, because one of the 5 years that was left in the time frame is gone. If we do that again, we'll make it 25% more difficult to reduce GHGs. Every year we do it, we screw it up more, right? If we do not get money out the door. And so I really think it's important for us to put that into the context that any emissions reductions that are made next year are better than emissions reductions 2 years from that. Because most of the emission reductions we're talking about are ongoing. So I would say that it is maybe advisable to keep a little bit of funds, but for the most part, I agree with the idea that these funds, even if it means that we will not have sustainability of some of these programs, need to be put out there just to comply with the basic criteria of the program, which is emission reductions by 2020. And the greater picture, of course, is that the more emissions reductions that we get done sooner, the better for reducing overall emissions into the environment. I want to say something specifically. I think the organics money for CalRecycle is for one-time infrastructure projects. These projects will directly reduce methane, a short-lived climate pollutant, which, depending on whether you're using a 10 or 20 or 40-year time horizon, are either 20, 40, or 80 times more potent per molecule than CO2. And it's just incredibly important for us to tackle methane if we're going to get our GHG reductions, and this is really the cost-effective way to do that. So I guess I'm okay with holding it open. I really, would caution us to just caution against rejecting the governor's proposal out of hand. We should, of course, use our authority to make sure that our priorities as a branch of government is respected in that. But I would counsel against rejecting the governor's proposal out of hand.
All right, thank you for those comments, and thank you for presenting this morning. And we'll move forward. We'll hold that item open and move forward now to the Air Resources Board. Okay. Hold down the
First thing everybody does is move the microphone as far away as possible.
So we have Edie Chang, the Deputy Executive Officer for ARB, with us this morning. Welcome. It's good to see you.
I'm looking at my watch too. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Edie Chang. I'm the Deputy Executive Officer at ARB, responsible for our climate programs and our budget. So we're going to start with issue 3. These are budget proposals related to clean truck and bus standards, the Advanced Clean Cars program, and short-lived climate pollutants. These are necessary to support activities that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions from light and heavy-duty vehicles, methane from landfills and dairies, and hydrocarbons like those used in refrigeration systems. This work will also result in co-benefits for air quality by reducing smog-forming emissions such as oxides of nitrogen or NOx. As noted in the agenda, we believe AB 32 authorizes ARB to reduce greenhouse gas emissions beyond 2020, both to maintain the 2020 limit and to further reduce emissions. Furthermore, state law gives ARB authority to set greenhouse gas and criteria pollutant standards for cars and trucks independent of AB 32. We must not wait to begin reducing emissions from these sources. Although methane and HFCs have relatively short atmospheric lifetimes, they're powerful climate forcers, as we've heard this morning. HFCs are the fastest growing source of greenhouse gas emissions, both globally and in California. And similarly, current projections indicate methane emissions will not decline unless we implement new measures. If ARB does not take near-term action to stop HFC and methane emissions growth, it will become increasingly difficult to maintain the 2020 greenhouse gas limit, much less continue progress. Many of the same vehicle technologies that reduce greenhouse gas emissions also reduce criteria pollutants. Given the integrated nature of planning that focuses on greenhouse gases, toxic air contaminants, and criteria pollutants simultaneously, we believe the cost of implementation account is an appropriate funding source for this work. We are open, however, to exploring other potential fund sources with this committee and the Department of Finance. I'd be happy to answer any questions.